Thanks so much. So good evening, everyone. My name's Paul Wicks. I'm a neuropsychologist by training, and I work predominantly in the field of motor neuron disease, also known as ALS. And when I started working in this field about 22 years ago, I had like a 2-minute long spiel that I had to give about what ALS is, and I mentioned Stephen Hawking and things like that. But thanks to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, which I'm sure you all participated in a few years ago, you know exactly what that is. You may also be familiar with some of the sports people who've very sadly been diagnosed recently, which will give you a very clear view of just how devastating this illness can be. So for a very fit sports person like Rob Burrow, his progression that we saw during COVID on the BBC Breakfast sofa with people like Doddy Weir has been documented as a typical example of this disease, which is unfortunately rapidly progressive, untreatable, causes muscle wasting, atrophy and fasciculations all over the body. It is unfortunately associated with an 18 to 24 month median prognosis. So it's quite a rare disease, not as rare as some of the other diseases that you all work in. It affects about 5 in 100,000 people in the population. And of those 5 people, about 1 in 5 of them will have a genetic cause for their disease. They may have a known family history. The family history may be incomplete, it may be a de novo mutation. A couple of different things can occur there. But this is increasingly an important red thread that we can pull on. So my journey with this started 22 years ago now, when I started doing research in ALS at the Institute of Psychiatry. And my job was actually to track down people with very rare genetic mutations. I spent 3 years to find 6 people in the whole country with a SOD1 mutation. And my work was involving cognitive testing and neuroimaging to try and assess whether or not the brain was affected, not just the motor neuron disease, the motor neurons, in the aptly named motor neuron disease. But that wasn't really on the cards when actually it became part of my family's life too. And I went from being on the side of the desk with the clipboard and the computer to being on the side of the desk with the questions and no clipboard and lots of issues. So this is my father-in-law with my eldest daughter, and he has quite a slowly progressive form. So these 2 pictures are taken 5 years apart, and you can see my eldest is now an awful lot bigger. And he at this point is using a power wheelchair full-time and has lost the use of his arms, legs. He's using a ventilator for part of the day, and he's lost his speech. But he's part of the 1 in 10 folks that live for about 10 years, so quite a slowly progressive form. And I can tell you, it's a weird experience when you're in a clinic with people who are your colleagues and your drinking buddies giving you the genetic test results that have been, in process for 3 months. And you're about to hear from someone that you've done, karaoke bars in Japan with, this sort of life-changing results that affect, my children, my wife, my sister-in-law, what have you. And it was rather uncomfortable feeling, as I'm sure many of you know. As it turned out, his finding was negative, and we were able to breathe a sigh of relief. But it brought into sharp relief, and this happened during lockdown, that we were one of the lucky ones that had that. And we really did a lot of research to meet with other people. As it turns out, these people I was trying to track down, there's 3,000 of them on Facebook, and they meet every Friday. So the power of social media has really changed this. But still, there's a lot of issues that people are facing. They really feel alone, even if they see one of the world's leading specialists. They maybe get 5 or 10 minutes. They don't understand everything that's been explained. They have a lot of questions that can't get answered. And if you don't happen to speak English, if you don't happen to live near an academic centre, your experience is pretty poor. There's a lot of disagreement amongst clinicians about who should be offered genetic testing, and what we found was if you weren't a diagnosed individual yourself, if you were a child or a nephew or a cousin, you often couldn't even see a doctor in the first place to get genetic testing. Never mind, in some countries there's something like a 12-month waiting list. So our approach was to develop a solution that leveraged the power of the community, leveraged the connections that people could have, but also the power of technology. So we have developed a free, multinational online platform for individuals who are at risk of genetic ALS. We're offering them an online program of genetic education, peer support, connections to some of the key family planning that so few people know about, as well as free genetic counselling delivered by a human but supplemented by technology. We're offering them home genetic testing with a simple spit kit, and our ambition is to connect people to the research studies, clinical trials, and even one of the recently approved gene therapies that's been available in the United States. We're launching in the UK later this summer and the US in English and Spanish. Now for us, it's not just about finding positive cases. We actually anticipate more people are going to be told they don't have this risk, and actually they'll be relieved of some of the health anxiety that really plagues people here. We're also doing a psychological research study. Some of the reasons that clinicians don't tell families about genetic testing is they're worried it will cause them more anxiety. Well, we're actually going to quantify that. We're not just going to talk about, what if theoretical philosophical problems, and we're going to prove it out. But I will leave you with this quote about being on two sides of this coin. So I think we went from a period of really, despair and worry, and when that bullet whizzed by us, I think we could have said, well, thank goodness for that. Let's never think about this ever again. And instead, as a family and in partnership with our friends and our funders, we've actually decided to go and face it and to try and unite a whole community around lighting the way for other people that are in this position so that no one has to feel alone again. Thank you.